Retro-inspired platformers are quite common nowadays. Back when Shovel Knight was released, there was a buzz around the genre. It had been years since 8 and 16-bit style platformers were a thing, and I had so much fun playing through all of the great new titles in the genre. One style that has some hits, and unfortunate misses though, was the Mega Man-like game. Berserk Boy is just that, with a twist. It has the boss power-ups like Mega Man, some on-rail sections similar to the Donkey Kong Country games, and my favourite part is the melee combat that tracks your combos almost like a spectacle fighter. Right off the bat, I was slapped in the face by this stunning art style. The title screen is beautifully animated, and the second I got into the swing of things, I fell in love with the graphics. Berserk Boy is a resistance fighter that was transformed by a mysterious orb, and from there you have to jump, dash and fight through 5 worlds. And along the way you'll unlock new power-ups, all of which play completely differently and are brilliantly melded into the platforming and combat. And it's what makes this game so satisfying to play. As a platformer, Berserk Boy is frantic. The character has plenty of mid-air maneuverability, which is what I like in my platformers. Now, I will admit that the game didn't click with me straight away. In my first 2 sessions, I played a level or 2 and then put it down. But eventually, it clicked. And once it did, I couldn't stop and I pretty much finished the game in one sitting. There's a level of momentum in the game that you reach by learning how to use the power-ups, the chain attacks together, using enemies as platforms and building up your combo, all to improve your score throughout the levels, and it's seriously addictive. The power-ups are what allow you to pull off all of these tricks on the levels. The first and my favourite one is lightning. And with this you can dash, which is useful in platforming but also dealing damage to enemies. You can also chain attacks with multiple enemies and then press A to finish them off. The other 4 power-ups do all sorts of things in the combat and platforming, like burrowing under the ground and flying. Then you can also do other things like throw kunai or uppercut your enemies. I mostly used the lightning form because it gave me the most movement options, and while others are useful against certain bosses, I mostly stuck with this form to fight them because I could dodge their attacks easier than the other forms. You can also upgrade Berserk Boy, and these upgrades can be as simple as extra energy or extra health, all the way up to adding new abilities like an extra dash in the lightning form, or even more powerful attacks for all the other forms. At points in the levels there are little portals that I think act as a recommendation of what power up to use, but these kind of confused me more than anything. At first I thought the game was forcing me into using a single form in the next room to add more challenge, but I could still freely swap between them, and it had me wondering why the game didn't have challenges like this. While the later levels do get creative with the platforming and chaining different forms to move around the levels, I would have loved to see the creative and fun ways that the developer could have implemented the forms by forcing you to use one in a section, so that you could explore the form's true platforming potential. There are 3 main collectibles in the game. One is the blue orbs, which act as a currency to upgrade your character. The others are medals that are hidden throughout the levels, and the main one are resistance fighters, and I love how they're implemented in the game. Each level has 4 checkpoints, and throughout the levels you find locked doors that have a number on them. So if it says 60%, that means you have to find 60% of all the resistance fighters to unlock the door. And I loved how this game handled backtracking. You can warp freely from checkpoint to checkpoint, and the majority of these doors that you have to backtrack to will be near another checkpoint, and it's such a clever way to do backtracking. Not only can you re-explore the levels with new power-ups to find extra resistance fighters and eventually unlock these doors to 100% the levels, being able to fast travel from checkpoint to checkpoint also removes the frustration of having to restart the level if you feel like you missed a collectible. When you have found 100% of the resistance fighters in a level, it unlocks a time trial, and while I only did a handful of them, they were so much fun and it gave me that extra bit of precision platforming that the game's mechanics were begging to have. Don't get me wrong, the later levels do offer challenge, especially in the limited lives mode, but the time trials were another level and they offer so much content for people who want to get 100% completion. Now, pretty controversially, I think most platforming bosses are quite boring in how you actually fight them. I think the main thing that makes them stand out are their designs over their actual mechanics. And here the boss fights are pretty strong. In some worlds you fight a mid-boss, and these were nice warm-ups for the main bosses. In true Mega Man fashion, each time you kill a world-ending boss, you get their powers, and these are not only great visual showcases of the gorgeous animations, but they are true tests of your combat skill. Now, I could just be playing the game wrong, or maybe the lightning suit simply suited how I play platformers, but it didn't feel like each boss had a form that they were weak to, which kind of threw me off a bit. Now, I do have 2 minor gripes with the game. After you unlock a new power-up, the game brings you back to the hub and you have to go through it to take out all of the enemies on the ship. It's a minor annoyance, but it killed the pacing when I wanted to jump straight back into another level with my new power-up. And I understand that these are more than likely there to act as tutorials so you can get to grips with the new power-up, but I would have preferred to just explore that in a level myself. And the load times on the Switch certainly aren't the worst I've ever come across, but they were long enough that at first I thought the game had frozen. When it comes to critiquing a game like Berserk Boy, it's a pretty weird spot to be in, because it's cheap, cheerful, and it won't take up too much of your time, and the time you spend when it will be fun. It does exactly what it set out to do, and I had a great time playing it. It gets the fundamentals down, the character feels nice to control, there's a nice momentum to movement, the combat is satisfying, and the power-ups add a nice variety to the core loop. And I would recommend it to anybody who was looking for a retro-inspired 2D platformer. I genuinely had fun with this game, but on the other hand, I don't think I'd put it in the same tier as some of the top tier indie retro-inspired 2D platformers like Shovel Knight or Celeste. And for that, I'll give Berserk Boy a 7 out of 10. And there we have my first review for GameXplain this year. Let me know what you think about the game, and also let us know what other games you want us to review this year. I really appreciate you watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next video.